Quaid Azam, Part 44. Well, Zaki wrote to the principal about Archibald, who was visiting Shimla. You must have read and thought over Mr. John Morley's speech on the Indian budget. It is very much talked of among the Mohammedans of India and is commonly believed to be a great success achieved by National Congress. You are aware that the Mohammedans already feel a little disappointed, and young, educated Mohammedans seem to have a sympathy for the Congress, and this speech will produce a greater tendency in them to join the Congress. I have got several letters drawing attention particularly to the new proposals of elected representatives in the legislative councils. They say that the existing rules confer no rights on Mohammedans and no Mohammedans get into councils by election. If the new rules now be drawn up, introduce election on a more extended scale, the Mohammedans will hardly get a seat and no Mohammedans will get into the councils by election. Minto saw Mohsen Mulk's letter on 8 August 1906 and sent it on to Morley. On 10 August, Archibald, the Viceroy's secretary, informed Mohsen Mulk that Minto would receive a Muslim deputation and hear their grievances. This finally happened on 1st October 1906 when Minto received a deputation of 35 Muslims from all the provinces of British India, barring the NWFP. An address was then presented to the Viceroy claiming for Muslims a fair share in such extended representations as was now being considered for India. But that fair share should be computed not merely by reference to the numerical strength of the Muslims in India, but also by a reference to their political importance and to the contribution which they make to defense of the empire. After remarking that representative institution of the European type were alien to the people of India, and this address went on to assert that such representations as the Muslims had hitherto been granted in the legislative councils had been inadequate and without the approval of those whom the nominees had been selected to represent. Furthermore, a Muslim was unlikely to be selected by the electoral bodies as new constituted unless the sympathies of the majority, and which it followed would be necessarily be a Hindu, in which case it was put across he would not be a true representative of the Muslims, because they are a distinct community with additional interest not shared by the other communities and have hitherto suffered as they have not been adequately represented. The address proposed that a fixed proportion of the Muslims on municipal and district boards be returned by separate electorates, that the proportion of Muslims to the provincial councils should be established with due regard to the Muslim community's political importance, and proportion to be returned by an electoral college composed of Muslims only, and that in a similar arrangement should be adopted for the Imperial Viceroy's Legislative Council, appointed by election being preferred over the appointment by nomination. Minto's response was encouraging. He welcomed the representative character of the deputation for expressing the views and aspirations of the enlightened Muslim community of India, and announced that in any system of representation, whether it affects municipality, a district board or legislative council in which it is proposed to introduce or increase an electoral organisation, the Mohammedan community should be represented as a community.